Iyaka na'budu implies that the person who is saying it is yearning primarily for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is their greatest objective in life to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is their greatest objective to worship Him because of who He is. When this is an implication of this statement, then it becomes necessary that all acts of obedience that fall under na'budu, which we've discussed, all of those acts are done with absolute sincerity, where there is no other motive but to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what we call sincerity of intention, it's not what we're telling ourselves we're doing this act for. It's the true motivation of that act. In other words, there's a difference between telling oneself that they are sincere and they are doing something for the sake of Allah, and allowing only the pleasure of Allah to motivate them. Simple example, a person has some work that they need to do, and that work is related to someone who said they will meet them at the masjid for that work. Now, they're coming primarily for that. That's what motivated them. Otherwise, they did not have any plan to come to the masjid. So they can tell themselves that they are coming to the masjid only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that wouldn't exactly be correct, because that's not their true motive for coming. Yes, if they change their motive, they change their intention, and they set up the scenario in such a way so that at least coming to the masjid is only for the sake of Allah, then it would be said that this act is for that reason. But the point is that it's not the voice inside that we sometimes summon and say to ourselves, but rather it's our true motives. It's the actual motives, the things that make us do what we do. That's where our intentions lie. And it takes a great deal of effort to bring all of the ulterior motives, to bring them all together and push them aside, so that there is nothing in front of a person but the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is also what the kalima of ikhlas, la ilaha illallah, teaches us. And this is why we have been encouraged to repeat this kalima very frequently, because it instills inside us that message of tawheed in all aspects. So as we know, any act of worship or any act of obedience, if it is done for the sake of Allah, then it is accepted, and it brings all of its rewards, characteristics, effects. And if the act, no matter how noble it is, if it is done for some other reason, then neither is there a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor will the effects of that ibadah that have been promised actually occur. And sincerity, on one side, it's a very simple, a very easy thing, that just get rid of everything else from our minds. So from that perspective, it's a very simple thing to do. But in reality, everyone knows that there are many different things that keep creeping into the mind and trying to take over our intentions and trying to become our motives, whether it's that people are watching or pleasing someone, or gaining some worldly objective, or whatever it may be that shaitan is implanting in our minds or making us work around. The challenge for the slave of Allah is to battle all of those things and remove them from his agenda or her agenda, so that the worship is left only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ala lillahi dinul khalis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only accept those acts that are done only, purely, exclusively for His sake. Inna Allaha tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiban. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure. He only accepts that which is pure. This is also a very important aspect of this statement, Iyaka na'budu, and the discussion would be very incomplete without bringing it. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.
فتهدي الضياء لها